Today, we're going to be doing a meal prep video and one of my favorite new recipes. This is going to be a buttered chicken burrito. This is a super low calorie recipe with tons of protein to keep you satiated throughout the day. So without further ado, let's get to it. Before we go any further, I do want to make a shout out to Gold Nutrition Tips. Their Instagram page is great and has a lot of different recipes, and this is where I found the buttered chicken burrito recipe. And of course, it's not going to be verbatim, it's going to be my own take on the recipe. We're not going to use fresh garlic and things like that, but that might enhance the recipe a little bit. Instead, I'm just going to stick to using seasons. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and grab all of our ingredients. This is going to consist of 665 grams of chicken, 400 grams of canned tomatoes. Typically, you can just use the whole canned tomato. Half of a white onion, and I'm using half of a white onion. I didn't go down to the grams or anything like that because onions are relatively low calorie, so there's no need to rethink the wheel. If this was a little bit higher calorie, maybe I would reconsider. 15 grams of cashew butter, 150 grams of Greek yogurt, and these little Greek yogurt cups are great because it's just 150 grams right off the top. So if you don't use Greek yogurt regularly, you can go ahead and use one of these cups. We're going to need burrito tortillas, and I'm using the carb balanced mission tortillas. In my opinion, these are the best tasting ones, and they're pretty low calorie, so it's going to help shave off a few extra calories. And finally, we're going to have 350 grams of jasmine rice in this case, but really any rice is fine. Just make sure you're accounting for the calories. And of course, what is a meal prep recipe without making your food lively? For this, we're going to use a bunch of different seasons to include turmeric, masala, garlic powder, onion powder, and of course, some pepper and salt. This is a pretty simple recipe, and one thing that I do enjoy about this meal prep is the fact that it's relatively quick, and of course, it's portable. You can eat this cold, you can eat it warm, and you can take it with you pretty much anywhere. To get started, we're going to go ahead and use our 350 grams of jasmine rice and add that to our rice cooker. Now I'm using a rice cooker here because I think it makes the best quality rice, but you could also use a stovetop, pot or pan or whatever you want to use to cook your rice. However you prefer to use it, it's totally fine, but in this case, I'm going to use my rice cooker. Then we're going to go ahead and get our chicken ready, but we're not going to cook it just yet. We're going to go ahead and use all of our seasons that we had before, and we're going to dump this into the chicken, and we're also going to make sure to include our Greek yogurt. Now this is going to be 100 grams of the 150 grams of the Greek yogurt. The first time I did this, I did make that mistake of using all of the Greek yogurt and not having enough left over for the sauce. It's not a crazy difference, but in my opinion, it's good to just stick to the recipe if you're doing this for your first time. And we want to make sure that we're mixing that chicken around and the seasons to get the texture of the chicken to kind of change color, right? We want it to be a little bit more of an orange color as opposed to the pink color that chicken typically is. This may take a couple of minutes, and the turmeric is really going to make sure that that chicken turns a little bit more of an orange-ish color. And once we have that all together, we're just going to set it to the side for a little bit. Then we're going to go ahead and get started on our sauce. The sauce is going to get started out with some white onion, and again, use as much as you want to your own discretion. Some people hate onions, I personally like them, so I'm going to use about a half an onion here. I'm going to put that on our pan with some non-stick spray, and I'm going to let that cook for a few minutes until it gets nice and brown. And once those onions start browning and they look good, I'm going to go ahead and use our tomatoes, the rest of the Greek yogurt, and the seasons that we had before. And we're going to mix that into the pot so that way it starts to turn color. Mix it around, let it simmer, and kind of do its thing. And once our sauce comes to a simmer, then we're good to go. We're going to take that sauce and we're going to put it into a blender. In my case, I have a NutriBullet, so I'm just going to go ahead and use that. But you can go ahead and use a regular blender for this. Really what we're looking for is a softer texture to make sure that that onion, the tomatoes, and everything is well blended. And once that's well blended, you're going to take your chicken and you're going to begin cooking it. I'm cooking mine at about a medium to high heat, so kind of in the upper quarter, let's say, of the stove settings, and I'm just going to let that cook until it gets a nice brown color. And once my chicken is fully cooked, I'm going to take our sauce from before, I'm going to dump that into the same pan, and we're going to mix the sauce with the chicken and just kind of let it come to a simmer once again. And just about at the same time as the chicken is ready, the rice should be relatively ready. It only should take about, 20 minutes or so to cook this much rice. At least that was my experience. And since that worked out so well, we're gonna go ahead and begin wrapping our burritos. To wrap the burrito, it's gonna be quite simple. We're gonna go ahead and use our burrito, lay our rice into a nice line, and add our chicken on top. From there, it's as simple as wrapping the burrito. One thing I will say is I used to be very intimidated at wrapping burritos. I'm not the best at it right now, but I've gotten a lot better. This does take practice, but basically what you're gonna wanna do is take the long sides of the burrito and fold them over and just kind of roll it together. And finally, I'm just gonna use aluminum foil and wrap these bad boys up and put them in the refrigerator for the rest of the week. As someone who's been meal prepping for about 6 years now, I have to say that this is probably one of the fastest recipes that I have on hand, and it's one of the things that I enjoy the most about this. It tastes great and it doesn't feel like you're dieting, but at the same time, you're only spending a couple of minutes maybe getting this ready. Maybe not a couple of minutes, it's more like 30 minutes. And it's nice to have the versatility of having the rice cook at the same time as your chicken and sauce. The sauce is very low maintenance, as you can see, and it's really easy to cook. I feel like if I can do it, pretty much anybody else can. And so this recipe is gonna allow you to cook about 5 servings. That's gonna be 5 days worth of meal prep. Now, I'm not necessarily recommending that you meal prep for 5 days, because typically that's not the best option if you want fresh and delicious foods. However, I will say that these do age better than some meal preps that I've done in the past. And I'm sure there's people watching this channel right now that can probably relate. Of course, you could just meal prep a couple of these twice a week, because again, this is really low maintenance, and for the most part, the chicken and everything else is pretty much stuff that you probably already have on hand at your house, with the exception of maybe some of the seasons. So with all of that said, what are the macros on one of these burritos? One burrito is going to be 495 calories, 58 grams of carbs, about 12 grams of fat, and 67 grams of protein. That's a lot of protein. If you struggle to hit your protein goal, then this is probably a solid recipe to have in your back pocket, especially if you're cutting or something like that. It'll allow you to cut your calories without feeling deprived of a good tasting food and, of course, high protein. And we all know that high protein is one of the most important things for your diet whenever you're trying to cut and sustain muscle mass. Typically, I stick to the rule of 0.7 grams to 1 gram per pound of body weight. I'm 165 pounds, so for me, 165 grams is the ceiling of protein that I feel like I need. Now, there are some other channels that might recommend you eating more protein, but in my opinion, that's just not optimal or realistic. Having that 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is perfectly fine. And for anybody watching that might have a weight issue and be considered obese, also keep in mind that you don't necessarily have to hit 300 grams of protein if you're 300 pounds at, let's say, 5'10", 5'9", 5'8", however tall I am, right? Instead, what you can do is you can take your height in centimeters and use that per gram of protein. So if you're 5'10", then you'd be eating about 177, 178 grams of protein per day, which would allow you to hit a sufficient amount of protein given your size. And that's something that I feel like a lot of fitness influencers don't talk about, like assuming that you're trying to influence people and provide a better path for them to lose weight. I feel like that's something that should be a little bit more mainstream. If you are obese, try just taking your height and converting that to centimeters, and then that would be the grams of protein that you're looking to consume. So, I don't know, just a crazy thought. So that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed today's content. If you did, please be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And let me know what you thought about, today's content. I mean, I've been working on providing better shots and trying to be a little bit more meticulous about the way that I'm shooting things whenever I'm making meals and things like that. If you enjoyed today's content and the way that it was shot, let me know. If you have any suggestions, also let me know. I'm not, gonna be butthurt by any kind of suggestion. I'm trying to get better at this personally, so any feedback is good feedback. And of course, I'm not going to go without thanking everybody who's been watching these videos. My channel has seriously grown so much in the last couple of months, and I feel way more motivated than ever to continue providing content and just improving my craft. So thank you. I really do appreciate it. And with that said, I'll see you all in the next video.